Hey guys, welcome to the Residents of Evil podcast, episode 2.5, Remixed Edition. That opening song you just heard was the Resident Evil 2 Save Room theme Synthwave cover by Mono Memory. I just loved it so much, I had to have it as the opening. So if it's something you're interested in, I'll leave the link to that and Mono Memory's page down in the description. Alright, let's get right into it. The reason why this isn't the Residents of Evil podcast episode 3 is because originally this started as that. We had a fun little topic we did, and we ended up getting so into it, we actually took almost 2 hours recording this. So we decided to put it out as its own thing. So if this is something you guys enjoy, please let me know. Maybe we could do some more one-off podcasts like this. But episode 3 will be coming soon, so let me know if you like it.
So pretty much what we're talking about here is the 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. It was on a forum a while back for like movies, and a lot of people were getting into it, talking about like when you were 5 years old, what movie did you see? Then there was the 10-year-old one, 15-year-old you, 20-year-old you, 25, that kind of deal. So I thought to myself, I was like, why don't we do it for video games? And it don't have to be like anything like revolutionary or anything like that, but ones that kind of just like made you think like, oh, it's like I remember that from when I was that age. I know for a lot of people it might be hard to remember when they were 5 years old, but if you go back and you do the research, you'd be surprised what you remember.
Yeah, I'm doing that right now, and I'm just seeing a ton that popped up. And while I was trying to think about it earlier, offhand, I could not think of it. But when I do top games of that year, there's so many I played.
Memory shit, so I was able to like remember a lot of stuff without looking it up. But
damn, you're right.
Yeah, but for me, good. I mean, I'm gonna be 30 on Monday. But like, I went back and in 1992 is when I was 5 years old. There was a lot of games. There was actually like a lot of firsts and a lot of big things that happened in '92. It was. I mean, we got 2 Mega Man games for the NES, and by that time, like, the Sega and the Super Nintendo were out, but the NES was still making games. Mega Man 5 and 6 came out for it at that time. No, 4 and 5, I apologize. We got Streets of Rage 2 on the Sega Genesis, which was like one of the greatest beat-em-ups of all time. You got Sonic the Hedgehog 2 that came out. You got the birth of Mortal Kombat in the arcades. And then there was Kirby's Dreamland, which was the first appearance of Kirby, because a lot of people think the NES version was the first one, but it was actually the Game Boy version. It was Kirby's Dreamland. That was the first time we ever saw Kirby. But for me, the game that made the most impact on me, especially during this year, because it was out in for consoles, and I think it was in arcades too, because I remember it being actually in arcades. But it was Street Fighter 2, the original Street Fighter 2. Oh.
That was a good game. That was a really good game.
And if anybody that's been following our podcast and everything, like, they know that I love fighting games even more than I do horror games. But Street Fighter 2 was this like amazing quarter-eating machine that was just it spread out into something amazing that's still going on today. And I mean, back then it was actually given the Golden Joystick Award. And they
nice. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, and that's just Street Fighter 2. Like, that's like the basic package with it. And I loved the characters. I loved seeing so much from that and challenging people in the arcades as a kid. I was like 5 years old. You challenge all the other kids your age or a little bit older. You might get smoked. You might beat some guys. You didn't really know how to do pretty much any of the cool like moves that you would see. But Street Fighter 2 like resonated with me. I loved it because I grew up watching, Steven Seagal movies with my father and everything. So seeing these guys do all these like crazy stuff, and like you're playing as Blanca and you can literally just bite down on people's fucking heads and like blood coming out.
Electrocute them.
Oh yeah, you can electrocute them. And you got Guile, who has like the greatest theme song ever. And I played Guile a lot because my father, he was former Air Force and everything during Vietnam and everything like that. So his stage just screamed America. You had the Air Force, you had the pilots, and all the soldiers in the back, and Guile's just throwing people into boxes.
That badass haircut that I want right now.
Style haircut. Yep. And everything was great that he did. And going around seeing like the different cultures and everything, which a lot of people would consider like being stereotyped somehow.
No, not at all.
No, not at all. But no, Street Fighter 2 was like, out of all those games I mentioned earlier, Street Fighter 2 was the one that just kind of like stuck in my mind, and I played a lot of on the and on the Genesis. I didn't have a Genesis till years later on in my life, but the Super Nintendo version and the arcade versions of that were like a cemented part of me, because as I got older, they made other games like Marvel Superheroes, X-Men vs. Street Fighter, Virtua Fighter 2, and they used to challenge people in arcades, and I used to win a lot of quarters back in the day.
On the topic you were saying about how the different areas could be stereotypical, I remember because Street Fighter was my favorite fighting game of all time. I even like Street Fighter more than Mortal Kombat, which is crazy. But I remember the levels were really bright and they were all different, and it's like every location had something new about it. And the backgrounds always had like they were animated, so things would be happening in the background all the time. I don't know, they were really cool.
No, you're totally right about that.
I don't know, really cool and different, and I don't know, it was just a really memorable fighting game because of all the different locations you could go to and the difference in characters, and I don't know, I love that game. That was a really good one.
Yeah, no, like Street Fighter 2, like I said, it's cemented into my childhood and being a big part of my life like that year, because I used to go on like camping trips, and some were like at campgrounds and everything like that, but they were out in the woods, and they had like a rec center that you would go to, and they did have Mortal Kombat there. I remember playing that. My best friend would be playing it, and he loved Mortal Kombat, but I just couldn't tear myself away from trying to learn how to play Street Fighter, and like, because some Street Fighter cabinets had the strip across that showed you how to do their moves, and as a 5-year-old, you're like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna button mash like no tomorrow.
Yeah, that's what I did.
Yeah,
I had no skill.
Yeah, that's pretty much my memory from my 5-year-old one. Who's up next?
I'll take it real quick just because I found which one I played the shit out of. I remember when I was in 1995. I was 5, and I remember playing a lot of DOS games because I went from DOS to Super Nintendo to PlayStation. Okay. And this one was a little later, but I remember when it came out, I was right around 5 or 6, and I played the hell out of it. I would always want to go to my cousins to play it. The adults didn't like me playing it. If they found out I was playing it, they'd make me play something else, but I would tell him to boot it up for me, and we'd start playing it. It was Duke Nukem 3D.
Yes.
That game was so badass. I loved it, and it was just like the locations were awesome, the weapons were amazing. They had like a shrink ray, a big bazooka. I loved the C4, the pipe bombs they had in there. It was the pipe bombs. I don't know, it was just like a variety of weapons in a cool area, and he would always say something that was like extremely funny or mature rated for the time. And like I said, I wasn't supposed to play it, but I did all the time. So I think that was my game around that time in 1996. So I was 5, 6-ish, somewhere in there. But I just remember that was a big one. Duke Nukem was amazing. Who's Ali? You want to go next?
Back in when I was 5, it was 1990. I remember. Now we didn't own a Super Nintendo. Yeah.
Was it really 1990? I thought you were my age.
Well,
I didn't know that.
A little bit older.
I thought you were kidding.
I'm not old. I'm only 32. So.
For some reason, I thought you were my
close.
age. Oh, okay.
Oh, no, maybe not. You were 5 in 96.
No, not
definitely
close.
Not.
Yeah, we're 5 years apart.
So in 1990, like I said, we didn't own a Super Nintendo, but one of the ladies that used to babysit me, they had one. So I played a lot of Super Mario World, which is a classic. Obviously, we all know that one.
Oh, yeah.
So I spent, and it was funny because like the kids, this is gonna sound so messed up. We got like locked down in the basement. That's where we all had to go. It was like me and her kids. Like we weren't allowed to go upstairs at all. So
yeah, but the Super Nintendo was down there, so you were
I was
good.
Man. I'd hook up the Super Nintendo and I'd sit there and play Super Mario World while they all did whatever they were doing and being stupid and causing problems. I just sat in front of the TV and gamed it up, man.
That's awesome. That was a really good game too. I love that. I still play Super Mario World.
My son
with my daughter.
My son's 6
so
now, and earlier, mid last year, I got him into it. So about the same time period as me, he's 5. He started playing it too. So
good age.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Definitely. AJ, what was yours when you were 5?
Mine's easy. Tomb Raider.
Nice.
Oh yeah.
That's right. You're the young blood of the group.
5?
I am. I'm the youngin.
Yeah.
Tomb Raider was the first full 3D platforming game.
That game was really big when it came out, and it was really cool because it had so many different areas. It was 3D. You had a kick-ass female lead with usually carrying 2 handguns. That was a good one for sure.
Yeah, I tried so hard to play that game when it came out, and I could never get my hands on a copy. And then one day I ended up finding a copy, I think in a pawn shop, for the PC, and my PC could not run it, but I tried my damnedest to get that thing to work.
It was DOS box days.
Yeah, it was like no, it's not cooperating, but I tried. I really, really tried.
Yeah. I actually played that on the Sega Saturn. I was at my cousin's house. That's where I first experienced it, was on the Sega Saturn. Then my other cousin, he had it on the PlayStation. That's where I played most of it after. But I had played it on the Sega Saturn, and I was like, wow, this is it's a kind of a crazy game. Like I was kind of blown away by it because I mean it was PlayStation. That PlayStation was kind of like one of those mind-blowing systems in my opinion.
Right.
But the original Tomb Raider, that's a damn good way to start. No, I mean because that's like your favorite franchise, right?
Yeah, Tomb Raider is actually what got me into gaming hardcore.
Resident Evil was it for me. You were Tomb Raider. And what got you into gaming, Tony? I can't remember what you said last time.
Oh, well, I remember what got me into Resident Evil was actually playing the original when it had come out. I got it at a KB Toys, but pretty much what got me into gaming was my mother was always like really sick, and my father had to work like long hours, so I would spend a long time at my cousin's house, and they had the original Nintendo like in the 80s and everything, so in like the early 90s, and they had that. They had the Sega Genesis, Super Nintendo, and that's kind of like where I got hooked and everything from like pretty much playing Mario Brothers, a little older. Duck Hunt, and Ninja Gaiden, and trying to think like Sonic the Hedgehog 1, like all that stuff like that was out on the original Nintendo. I like got hooked into playing, and I would stay up late because they would go to their rooms, and I would just be like, well, everybody's gone to bed.
Yeah,
being in the family room, which because they had two living rooms, the main living room and the family room, and that's where the systems were hooked up. And I'm like, I'm gonna stay up and play this for like another 4 hours.
You know what? I do have to add something. Does anybody remember the Sega Channel?
No, I don't remember that at all.
It sounds familiar, but I don't think I remember it.
It was like some kind of weird thing. Like it was on the TV, but it actually had like video games. It was almost like a subscribing service.
It's like Twitch.
Yeah, almost.
Or like G4.
Really?
Way back. Yes.
Back then?
I'm definitely gonna have to research.
No shit. So you would watch people play video games on TV, and you'd pay a subscription fee for it.
Interesting.
Genius. I wonder if any of them guys went on to create Twitch.
I don't know.
I'm not sure.
That would only make sense. That is really interesting that there would be something like that long ago.
If I had to add on to it, though, I would say, besides Tomb Raider, Street Fighter 2 was actually my first game with the arcade.
Hell yeah.
I'm not going to say why because Tony went into it, but...
Yeah.
I remember being a kid. I lived in a little bitty town. We moved a lot when I was young, and we was a little small town in Indiana that was, I don't know, like 400 people at the most. But they had a movie theater, and down the road from that movie, and the movie theater showed two movies, one on Friday, one on Saturday. It's usually appropriate for kids type movie, like Little Giants and stuff like that. I remember watching Little Giants there. And then like Saturday was your more risky, like PG-13 and R movies. And around the corner from that was a pizza parlor, and it had one arcade game, and it was Street Fighter 2. And we used to go there after the movie, and my brother would shoot pool, and when I wasn't playing, because I've always been playing pool my whole life, when I wasn't playing, I would just sit there and watch the loop of the beginning of Street Fighter 2 over and over and over and over. That's it.
That's awesome. I would kill somebody if I could get Street Fighter 2 arcade machine for my house. I remember wanting one so fucking bad.
Dude, they actually had the original arcade when I was down in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, that's so awesome that they still have arcades. I live in a small town now. You're not gonna find one around here for hundreds of miles.
We got one called Round One, and they're like an arcade from Japan that came over and started putting their places everywhere. So
that's awesome. So awesome. I would love. I want to go to Japan.
If you ever find a Round One arcade and you hear one close within like 2-hour radius, make a trip there. If you're a gamer and you love arcades, you're gonna love Round One.
They literally have,
that's so dope. I want to turn my.
They literally have like arcade games, and they're like Dave and Buster's but better because all their shit they actually upkeep and they keep it fixed and everything like that. So,
it would be awesome to even have a Dave and Buster's here.
See, like Dave and Buster's, if you go there, it's more of a mature atmosphere. They've got gun shooters. They've got a lot of competitive games and things like that. They don't have, like in my opinion, real arcade games where. Like fighting games and stuff like that,
and
or
pinball and all that
stuff.
Yeah,
and Round One has everything. And I sent you that picture. You guys, the picture, they have Tekken 7 right now. And it's just like a Japanese arcade where you sit down and you play the guy that's on the other side. You're not standing next to each other. You're sitting at a console in front, not a console, but a cabinet. And they're on the other side of the cabinet on theirs playing. So it's ridiculous, man. They got a bunch of Japanese photo booths. They got all kinds of cool stuff. They got this really cool dueling style Japanese game where you've got two guns and you put your headset. They've got a headset on the system. You put the headset on so you can talk to whoever you're playing anywhere in the world. And it's an anime style where you pick a character, you're flying around this environment with whatever weapon you have, which like a gun of some sort, and you're just going to town. It's crazy.
Stop. My penis can only
That
get
would
so
be
erect.
so fucking cool. For real, honestly. It's like all we have here is bars. If we had something even remotely as cool as that, I'd be there all the time.
Yeah,
That
round one
sounds
is-
so
that's
awesome.
really
Makes
awesome.
me really want to go to
Oh, you don't have to
Japan.
go to Japan. Round one,
Yeah.
they have all around. Like they're starting to get them a lot of places in the States now and everything. So I think there is one in Texas. I think there's one near Arlington, if I remember correctly.
There's two. There's one in Arlington. There's one in Grapevine. Right.
Oh,
and they're-
hell yeah. I was in Grapevine
Grapevine's amazing.
a while back.
And those two are within
Yeah.
like 40 minutes of each other, which kind of sucks. You've got two in that area, but they need to come to other places.
I'm sure they will.
Spread out.
But,
I wish
alright,
I could remember the actual name for the arcade I went to, because they actually had like the bottom floor was all the arcade machines, and they had a 3D or a VR room, and then the second floor it was actually all consoles. They had the PS4, they had the PS3, the Xbox, all that shit, and you could play anything you wanted.
That's cool.
That is cool.
Hey,
That's
on
so
the
cool.
topic of arcades, that takes me into my 10-year-old like mark. When I was 10 and
Transition.
95, I like between 90 and 95, Mortal Kombat came out, and I was a huge Mortal Kombat nut. So in 95, I was playing Mortal Kombat 3 like religiously, between whether I was at an arcade, a pool hall, or sitting at my Sega at the house. You know, Mortal Kombat it's still to this day is one of my favorite games. And it was why we have the ERB for the most part.
Yeah, I mean,
And
no, it's legendary
is,
in
yeah.
its own right for
Exactly.
what it did for fighting games and what it did for the gaming community, and the fact that it's still going even after all these years. I mean, yeah, they've made a couple of crappy titles, but
They had a few.
really made a bad game. Well, except for Naughty Dog, they've done pretty good with Uncharted, but
Yeah, Naughty Dog is pretty much and
They did
Last
a
of Us.
really good job.
yeah, and pretty much every Max
Yeah.
Payne game has been fucking like amazing.
Awesome. I
Oh,
love
God, I
Max
do
Payne.
too.
Such a good
But,
series. That newest game too is a really good third game. I loved it.
Man on Fire / Die Hard. I mean, like, yeah, Max Payne
Yeah.
is the John McClane of video games. That guy does not stop.
Yeah,
He really
that's
is.
another game that I tried my hardest to play. Same thing. I got a copy on PC, and my PC wouldn't play it, so I tried my damnedest.
That game looks so good on PC too back in the day.
Like, I
Yeah.
want my bullet time, damn it.
But yeah, so,
So cool. So, Mortal Kombat 3 was
Yeah,
yours,
Mortal
Ollie?
Kombat 3 when
you
I
were
was 10. I mean, I played pretty much all of them back and forth and just ridiculously amount. Like, when I was,
Yeah.
I think I was probably in the 5th grade, and I had a friend that came over, and we were, Mortal Kombat. They had that damn Mortal Kombat. This is how off it was. They had the ERB, but they still marketed to kids because of the movies and stuff. And I think Mortal
yes.
Kombat 1 came out like what, 94, something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
around that time period. And
Yeah.
they had this live show for kids that was Mortal Kombat, where you go and you would see all of your characters fighting live, and they sold a little. It looked like almost like a Power Rangers morpher, but it was the Mortal Kombat symbol, the dragon. So we'd all throw that up in the air and we'd scream, and everybody would be like fighting and stuff. And I mean, I was hooked on it, man. I love martial arts. I was in martial arts, and it was gory, it was graphic, it was fun to watch, and Scorpion's always been my favorite character. So, but he came
Yeah.
over, and we drew our own versions of characters from Mortal Kombat for the next game. And we had like young, like Stryker, who's probably one of the worst Mortal Kombat characters ever made. But we made Stryker Jr., which he was like a kid our age that used like school supplies as his weapons. Like,
Dude, that's so
would stab you
awesome.
with pencils and paper cuts. It was ridiculous, dude.
Mortal Kombat paving the
So,
way.
were you,
Right.
Ollie, were you in heaven when they released Mortal Kombat Armageddon and you could actually
Yes,
make
dude.
your
I still
own Mortal
go
Kombat
back and play that
character?
occasionally too, just because I have my guy on there.
I loved it. It was so cool. That's right up your alley, except you can't really stab people with
Well,
pencils.
not
and-
yet.
Yeah,
Maybe
they
in the
didn't light
future we can do
fire.
that. Right.
But all right, yeah. So I'll move into my my 10-year-old game. This was actually in 1997. This was actually like right after the year after Resident Evil came out. So I was bummed out that I didn't get that one. But 97 was actually an amazing year for games. I mean, you got games like Final Fantasy 7, Tekken 3, Mega Man 8, Mega Man X4, GoldenEye 007 on the N64.
Those are all just incredible games.
And you even got
Mhm.
this one has to be said because it just got re-released recently. It's Parappa the Rapper. Have to mention that one.
Nice.
Oh
That game
god,
is
yeah,
so
and it
good.
still is from what everybody says. I'm buying it tomorrow. But and then there's the last one that was actually really good in my opinion. Well, not in my opinion, but just ones I really loved and played a shit ton of because of the content. Was Crash Bandicoot 2. That one was there. But the main game that even beats out my love for Mega Man X4 and Final Fantasy VII is actually Breath of Fire 3 for the PlayStation.
Oh, interesting, yeah.
Breath of... Oh, shit.
I played a lot of RPGs, but I was never really good at them as a kid. Because I think like when you're a kid, RPGs are a lot harder because there's a lot of talking and some of them are pretty pretty fucking technical.
Really tedious.
I didn't like RPGs when I was a kid. For some reason I couldn't get into the Final Fantasy series. It was just, I don't know. It was something about like taking turns and stuff. It wasn't until I got older that I actually started to really appreciate
Seven
RPGs
got me.
like that.
Final Fantasy 7 got me into it because I got really sick. And I was out of school for about a week. I couldn't go back to school. It was bad, so I was held up, recovering, and just, you know. And I think I had borrowed 7 from a friend because he put it on this pedestal. So I put it in, and I basically played that whole game straight that whole week. That's all I did was play Final Fantasy 7. I was like, dude, these games are incredible.
Yeah, like like even like the Super Nintendo ones were, except for Final Fantasy Mystic Quest, that game was garbage. But yeah, like Breath of Fire 3 was different because I had played Chrono Trigger on the Super Nintendo like a long time ago, and I had played other like Final Fantasy RPGs. I played Secrets of Mana, which that Super Nintendo game's worth a fucking pretty penny right now. And then there were other games like Earthbound I had played. And Earthbound, that was a totally different RPG because it wasn't like knights and wizards and sorceries. It was just like little, like, you know, portly kid from a town with psychic powers, and he beat people up with a baseball bat.
Nice.
And to try to save the world and shit. But like Breath of Fire 3 was this graphical leap for me because I was older, you know, I'm 10 years old, the game comes out, and it's just something unreal because the sprite work in it was godlike. You know, when games do sprite work very well, it can be very mind-blowing. Because like the Mega Man X series on the Super Nintendo, they did sprite work really well. What was it? Final Fight did sprites pretty well as back in the day too. And
I was just looking at pictures of it, and it looks really
just
good.
Exactly.
Holy shit! From out of nowhere.
Well, I mean, like,
Yeah, it looks
and
awesome.
I played Final Fantasy. No, sorry. Breath of Fire 2. I played Breath of Fire 2 on the Super Nintendo at a friend's house, and I actually enjoyed it because I enjoyed it so much. I got it on the Game Boy Advance many years ago. But that game, to me, as being an artist and a writer of doing that kind of stuff, that game showed me like a way to create better characters, and its art style just blew me away. Its combat system was great too because enemies could, like, you could learn enemy techniques, and it was an RPG where if your health stayed in the yellow, like if your main life like was yellow for whatever reason, if you died, got brought back to life, or you were wandering in the desert for too long, your life would permanently stay like that unless you got a health item to get you back. So you could literally stop gaining HP. You could literally be at like 95 HP for the whole freaking game, and that character could turn out to be completely useless.
That would suck.
It would. So like you're always like panicking, trying to find the stuff to keep you like that, or get to an inn to rest up and everything, or run back to one. You know, and then the characters were amazing because you got Ryu. It's the same thing. He's a dragon. He wakes up in a cave. And then he's discovered by two young punks that take him in. And they go on all these crazy adventures. They become heroes of the town, and then these dudes come to like kill them because they were hired to. And like Ray and Tipo get split up from Ryu. You don't see them later on. And every character you come across is just very unique and brightly done. As you know, as you guys have seen if looking at this thing, the game on a PlayStation level is still beautiful by today's standards. 4's was good. 4's was a little darker in terms of how they did their color palettes. But 3's was like a perfect blend of like light, dark, good storytelling. It's pretty interesting. I love the game to death. I go back and play it a lot, and it was the reason why I got a PlayStation Portable back in the day.
Oh wow!
Because when I found out that
I love the PSP.
Beautiful. But you go back and like they added a couple of new things to that game too in the PSP version. But that was the reason why I got the PSP, because that's like one of my favorite games of all time, and I was glad I got it because a lot of other good stuff came out. Plus, you can, PlayStation 1 classics, and if you know how to hack a PSP, you can put like ROMs and emulators on there.
Pretty much everything that was within that time period. What's funny is I was in Japan when the PSP came out, like initially before it hit the States. So I had an early release version, but all the games were in Japanese.
Oh,
I still played it. I still played it. I didn't need to know what they say. I mean, like, what was one of the first games I got? Well,
If you like-
Spider-Man came with it. It was in English, but what was the first game? I can't remember the first game. It was Twisted Metal. I think Twisted Metal was the first one.
Oh, that was fun.
But that's all. That's all for my number. For my 10. Who's next?
AJ, take it. I'll go
All right,
last.
I got this. Well, when I was 10 years old, my gaming habits kind of changed, like a completely different shift. With Resident Evil, I got into horror more, so I got hardcore in Parasite Eve.
Yeah.
Nice.
That game was hard.
No, not for me.
I don't. It was tough for me. I don't remember. I don't remember much
I have
about it,
one
but I
word
just
for
remember it was
you.
a tough game.
Get good, scrub.
Yeah, that's a good one word. Maybe you should work on that.
Almost
those
20
three.
years since the game's been made, and I still replay it every Christmas. I got actually a couple friends out of knowing the series too. Some of the best friends I've had. To me, Parasite Eve is actually the best title to come from SquareSoft. Even better than
game.
Final Fantasy.
Oh. I mean, I can see where a lot of people are gonna rip them to shreds, but like, if you really go back and you look at like what Parasite, it's like anything Square ever made back in the day that wasn't Final Fantasy. It got swept under the rug and forgotten, but like years later, like people kind of dug around that toy chest and they found it. You know, like Chrono Trigger. People keep asking for Chrono Trigger's like a remake or a continuation of it and everything. Everybody keeps asking about like, you know, some Parasite Eve remakes.
Well, was
Like
there
with
any other
games-
games like Parasite Eve? I mean,
No,
I
there
still
were
remember
not.
that being pretty unique.
Not
No.
really. That was like a RPG survival horror, right? That's
I
like
liked
that's what I remember. It was different, and I think that's why I had a hard time with it because it just wasn't like the other survival horror games out at the time. But it was still really good
Well,
in
what
its own way.
JJ
It
was
wasn't
saying
until like
about the whole taking your turn thing. I wasn't a big, RPG person back in the day either. I didn't like Final Fantasy until I got older. But Parasite Eve, that was actually my first RPG.
yeah,
It counts.
that I just was
It
looking
counts.
at pictures and remembered that
Yeah.
is an RPG. That's why I
It
had
had
a
a
hard time
battle
with it.
system that you had to
That
like,
was-
wait for your skills to recharge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you were just streaming that not too long ago, weren't you, Ellie?
I think I played a little bit of the beginning, and I intend to play that all the way through. Like, we have a lot of games lined up, and
You
that's
better.
definitely Parasite Eve 1 and 2 are on there. So
You
as
better.
well as I got to go back and finish Fear Effect 1 and 2.
Yeah, that's
that-
cool. That I might have to go back and check that game out a little more because the monsters in it were super. Like you remember, the monsters were being very unique and
Yep.
and cool in Resident Evil, but then you look at the monsters in this, and they're like just on a whole nother level of crazy.
I don't know. When it comes to antagonists,
cool.
I think Eve is one of the best ones out there.
Yeah, that is. She looks pretty badass too. Yeah, I don't know. That game looks really cool. I'm interested in going back and checking it out. I guess for my when I was 10, I know there was a lot of really good games. That's when the Dreamcast came out, and I was kind of transitioning to that. And I played a lot of Code Veronica, which was really hard. I played a lot of I think Soul Calibur. I'm not 100% when that came out. A lot of Crazy Taxi and just all Dreamcast games. But the biggest one I remember finding that I was just completely obsessed with until this day was The Sims. I always like I fucking love The Sims, and I am not afraid to say it. My cousins and I would get together and we'd always talk about how cool it'd be if you had a game that was just like real life and you could do whatever you wanted. And then one day they're like, "Oh, we have something to show you. Come over." I went over to their house and they like showed me it, and I was like, "This is what we've always been talking we wanted." And we would sit up for fucking hours playing The Sims, and like we were supposed to be sleeping. Their stepdad or their mom would come in like when we were up really late, and we'd have to pretend we were sleeping. And then when they would leave, like we'd hear them walking towards the door, we'd hurry up and go lay down. And then they would leave, and we'd play it again. And it was like one of the first games I ever remember playing until the sun would come up. And when you were a kid, that felt like it was like forever. And like, you know, as I got older, there's more games like GTA 3 I'd play till the sun came up and stuff like that. But that was like the first. And so I just that was the first game that I just got.
Did you have a basement
obsessed with.
painting troll?
A basement painting
You ever heard
troll?
about these people that make the ugliest character possible, and they make them the highest level and painting, and they lock them in the basement with no exit, and they paint and they paint and they paint, and they make a family come in upstairs that takes the paintings and sells them to make them rich, but this person can never leave the basement.
Jesus
That is so
I know,
Christ.
that's one of the most horrible things I've ever heard, but I was like, that's a way to make money.
That sounds like the shit I do in The Sims now, because now I run series on my Twitch channel where I like cook meth, and it's like stuff you can't do in the
Bad.
game, but there's so many ways around it. Yeah, it's Breaking Bad style. It's like it's not something you can do in the game, but there's ways like that you can do, and it's just like it's like taking the game the way they made the game and just kind of bending it to like goofy ways, like the basement troll, that makes that game so much fun to me. Like all the different things you could do and all the challenges you could do, and locking people in basements and making them paint while you get rich. Yeah, it's literally stuff like that. I love it. That's why I love that
People are
game.
gonna see the game and they're like, "Wait a minute, you can make meth in this," and then you just turn to them slowly and go, "You're goddamn right."
Say my name.
Yeah, you're goddamn right. You can. It's literally that's like
Science,
I
bitch.
like seriously. It's and I would like because you can't kill people in the game, and I didn't like to do it the mod way because I know you can get mods to kill people. I want to do it all vanilla, so I would cook meth, and then certain people I wanted to kill, I'd invite them over and lock them in a room and just let them sit in there until they died, and that'd be like my way of torturing and sending a message, don't fuck with me.
But so awesome.
It's so fun. I love it. And like seriously, everybody would jump in the game and they'd be like, hey, you got a mod to cook meth, and it's like, no, you could do this with what's in the game. It's just you have to use your imagination a little bit. And so yeah, it's just like real life. It all started with the Sims one, and that came out when I was 10. I remember my cousins got it shortly after it came out, and we were obsessed. So a lot of good games when I was 10, but that was by far my favorite, and to this day, like one of my favorite games of all time.
I kind of like that too, because like like a lot of people, they'll choose like the most popular games of that era type thing, and I mean obviously because we're all different ages, ours aren't going to stink up, but it's great when you get a thing like that where it's just like, oh yeah, it's The Sims, and it's like, wait a minute, really, The Sims? And it's like, I mean, you have a PC. It's like you got to understand, The Sims was the shit, like you said.
And that I didn't have a PC either, so it made me want to play it more because I would only get the time I was at my cousin's house, and that just like Resident Evil 2 when that first came out, I didn't have a PlayStation, so I'd have to go there, and it just when I'm at home, I'm just like thinking about how much I wanted to play it, and then when I actually got to play it at their house, like it just made it all the better, I guess.
Well, and this is why he's an addict.
Yeah, that's why you're an addict.
That's why you're an addict.
Oh yeah,
to the
like-
Sims.
exactly.
Oh yeah, like you're supposed to like go pit, like feed your kid and everything. It's like, oh yeah, no wait, just hold on, I got to finish this painting.
Yeah. Oh, let me just throw some food for the painting troll in the basement.
But yeah, no, yeah. Oh god, that's great. But yeah, everybody said they're 10, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Let's move on to 15.
For the 15. This was like an era like where it was like it's 2002 for me. So like it was kind of like there were a lot of good games, and I kind of feel like as this list went on, like I didn't get like as many great games as later on as I thought. But this was like the year that like Kingdom Hearts came out, Grand Theft Auto Vice City. But we got 2 Metroid games that year, which was both the original Metroid Prime and Fusion, which we don't see anything new from the Metroid series because Nintendo doesn't like it.
Right.
That was also the year we got Resident Evil 0, which that was a big deal for a lot of people who knew about the canceled beta back in the day. It was also the year we got games like Fatal Frame, Dragon Ball Z Budokai, which my friends and I did play the hell out of on the PS2. This is Capcom 2. It was already on the Dreamcast 2 years prior. Because it came out in 2000, but the PS2 and Xbox versions came out, and I had the PS2 versions, and playing that was great. But
For
game
Marvel vs. Capcom 2, is that what you said?
Yep, that was on the
Yes,
PS2
yes.
and PS2 and Xbox. Because 2 years prior, it was already in arcades and on the Sega Dreamcast, which
Yep.
like most fighting games. But the game that beat all this out, and originally I thought it was going to be GTA Vice City because Ray Liotta did the voice of Tommy Vercetti, and the thing was just like pure 80s nostalgia. But the one game, and it came out of like left field for me because like I was thinking about it, and I was like, I think I do have to put this in. And it's Super Smash Bros. Melee for the Nintendo GameCube. Pretty much the reason why a lot of people got the GameCube.
Right.
Not necessarily me. I found out there was going to be
one.
Resident Evil on it, so of course that's why I got it. But no, Smash Bros. Melee was interesting because my friends and I, any system that me and my friends played the most of, ever since we've all been friends since elementary school, it was probably the N64 because of like games like Mario Kart 64, Smash Brothers, the original Smash Brothers, Mario Party 1 and 2, Gauntlet, and a couple other games on there like 007. But for whatever reason, we left Smash Brothers behind in the N64. We transitioned over to the GameCube, and another buddy of mine, he had a GameCube, so he brought his controllers over, and we would crack hardcore on that game, and that game was great. I loved what that game had done for the series. I mean, it's still played competitively even till to today. It was really a game that, like, it gave you a lot of memorable characters. I mean, hell, like you got to finally play as Bowser in it, which I was kind of like shocked he was excluded from the first game, even though the first game had like a very small roster. But this game had so many characters that were added to it. I mean, they had Zelda and Sheik were added to it, and they were actually two characters I used a lot of. Like I said, Bowser was great. Peach was thrown in there. They had Kid Link was in there too from Ocarina of Time. And then he was replaced later with Toon Link in later Smash Brothers games. But yeah, no, it was to me it was a great game just to play, and everybody was kind of like wishing they had like more characters. But like to me, I thought the game was perfect. And apparently, everybody else in the FGC seems to think so too because it's still played. And then like you have the guys who they modded Melee into Project M, I think it was called. And they like started adding their own characters to the game, and like they balanced the games themselves. They kept putting out patches for this, and it's like, really, you guys, and like that just shows you like how dedicated people were to this game, even years later. And like Nintendo was like so against people like modding it and streaming it and everything. And there was that time where I remember it was one of the Evos. They wanted to get Smash Brothers because a lot of hardcore fighting people were like, well, Smash Brothers isn't a real fighting game. It's not like Tekken and Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter and any of the Marvel vs. series. That's not how this is. We don't want that. But then everybody discovered like how much fun that game really is, and actually how much of a strategy to it was. And
yeah,
so when,
there's a lot of strategy.
What happened was that they ended up getting into there. Nintendo found out, like, because they raised money for breast cancer research to stop it and everything, and Nintendo found that out that it was going to be streamed, and they put out like a cease and desist order, and then Nintendo got flooded with like so many like freaking death threats.
Good old Nintendo trying to shut down the party.
Yeah, I was like,
seriously.
Dude, it's like you are getting a game that you don't even support anymore, that people are still loving. You need this to get them hyped for eventually what became Smash Brothers Brawl, and that game was a fucking train wreck as much as I do love it. But Smash Brothers Melee to me was just really a game that my friends and I played a lot of, and I don't know why. Like it was weird because we all did play a lot of GTA Vice City, despite that was one player, because some of us could do some missions that others couldn't. And I was really shocked that, like I said, Marvel vs. Capcom 2 got beat out, and even Metroid Fusion, because that was like one of the greatest Game Boy Advance games I ever played. But yeah, Smash Brothers, for whatever reason, maybe it's because it gives me a lot of good times with my friends who I'm still friends with to this day, and we're still playing the new Smash Brothers. We're still 100%ing games and everything. I think that might be why, because it just had like that friend value, Yeah. Like I said, 15 years old. Like that was like, we were playing games like, I think Soul Calibur 2 came out like the year following, and we cracked hardcore on that. But for whatever reason, kind of like Mario Party 2, Smash Brothers Melee for the longest time was a game that we like never stopped playing. So I mean, yeah, it
was a fun game you could just pick up and play, like, and it would never, like, it would always be fun and entertaining. Especially like you said, when you're playing with your friends and stuff, it's just a good
especially if you
want
to do like I was the best Smash Brothers player out of all my friends, so we would do like
Sure you were.
Well, I was. Well, like we would do 3-on-1 matches, and I would beat them and everything. And we actually entered a tournament many years ago at Play and Trade, and I actually came in 5th place at that, and I was shocked that because you couldn't use items and all that stuff. Obviously, my buddies got knocked out kind of early, but 5th.
You're like, fine, I'll carry the team.
I pretty much did.
Yeah.
But like the guy I fought, he was Peach, and he knew how to use her because you couldn't use items, but she could pluck the turnips out of the freaking ground and shit like that.
Oh yeah.
And I was Captain Falcon because he was like him and Ness were still like the two characters I used the most, and I couldn't do anything. Like I got knocked off that stage, and I tried to come back. Those turnips were like the death of me, and I was just like, and this is why I hate turnips in real life.
Turnips.
Oh yeah,
Turnips bang.
But
that's exactly why.
My story for
that's a good one.
Well,
that is definitely.
I think I'm gonna go next because being the youngin, I was 15.
What year?
This was a very awkward year, 2006, when we were going into the Xbox 360 era.
You're only a year younger than me.
Damn, really?
You're not that. Yeah, I guess you're not that young. What the fuck?
Well, we were going
Okay, I
into
thought you were a
that
lot
weird
younger.
thing where we were going into the next gen consoles. So
Yeah.
I really don't have a favorite game from when I was 15, so I'm just gonna name off a couple that I liked from like the PS2 era. You know, there was Fatal Frame for me. I love that. That was true survival horror. Because, you know, Resident Evil got off the bandwagon. It started becoming an action game.
Yes, it did.
It was different.
Boulders.
Never gonna let him live that
Oh,
down,
God,
are
no.
you?
Critics didn't like the game. Critics didn't like the game, but I love Tomb Raider: The Angel of Darkness.
Oh yeah, that was
Yeah.
trashed.
I remember that.
You know,
Yeah, that one didn't have much time to really shine. I don't know why.
because the PS2 couldn't handle what they were trying to do. They were trying to do PS3 era on a PS2.
Oh, that guy.
Final Fantasy X, I think that would be my top game
Yeah, good
for
choice.
that era.
Very
it
good
was,
choice.
you know, like I was saying, I didn't really like RPGs back in the day, but as I got older, I started to appreciate them more. But Final Fantasy X, the characters, the story, the music, everything about that game, fantastic. I loved it.
Yeah, plus like you had voice acting in that game. That was like a first for Final Fantasy. There was
Yeah,
no more
that's
text.
some-
Text read.
Awful
And there's
voice
one more.
acting here and there, but
Or I got
Yeah.
to
the
mention
worst laugh in video game history.
Yes.
Haunting Ground.
Oh,
Oh yeah,
yes. There's a survival horror game that
Hunting
not a lot
Ground.
of people played. And they're like,
yeah, that's very. It's a. Yeah, they only came out with one and never did anything else.
Ironically, a
Right?
little trivia, that was actually supposed to be Clock Tower 4.
yep, it was.
Oh no shit. Nice
So yeah,
shit.
if I had to pick, you know, at least two games from that era, I would say, you know, Final Fantasy X and Haunting Ground. It was the best survival horror game.
It's true. I mean, like I haven't actually played a lot of Haunting Ground, but from when I did play that game, it was amazing. And a lot of people are like, wait a minute. Like I remember like back in the day, a lot of people like when I would talk about Haunting Ground, they're like, oh, I don't play survival horror games if it's not done by Capcom. And I was like,
It is Capcom, you nubs.
yeah. Well, like I mean,
Yeah.
you gotta realize that thing like was not advertised. That
No,
was
it
like a
wasn't.
sleeper thing.
No, the only reason I actually found out about it because we were in Cali at the time. We went to a video game rental place and they had it there, and we rented it. Nobody was renting it, so they literally just gave it to me for $10.
Nice.
Holy shit!
That game's
That's
like
really-
$100 now.
Yeah, do that.
You got a really
I've been trying
fucking
to get my
good
hands
deal.
on it, and it's hard to find.
Oh, you know what? There was
Oh, there you go. You can talk to AJ.
Do you still
one
have it?
more game. No, I don't. No, I don't. There was one more game that actually came out called Rule of Rose.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
the fighting is no. That's the horror one with the little girls, right? In the asylum or something.
Yeah, it was kind of similar to Haunting Ground, like you had a
Right,
dog
right.
and everything for protection.
I was for a minute there. I was like, Rumble of the Rose. Isn't that a fighting game?
Yeah, no, Rule of Rose was banned in a lot of countries, and if you want to get your hands on the American version, which it wasn't banned here, but that thing is literally running anywhere from like last time I checked, like 150 to 190 bucks.
Yep.
Yeah.
No,
Damn.
actually, it's going for over 200 now.
Yeah, see those ones that are like the survival horror games that are more obscure, like Rule of Rose and Haunting Ground, and the game that's obscure itself, are really hard to find, and they're
Yep.
very expensive because
Unless
they're
you
little
go with
a
gems
lot
that
of
weren't
money.
promoted because they were going up against the big guy like Resident Evil, and they just couldn't compete, but they were still really good games in their
See,
own rights.
That's the thing too. Resident Evil wasn't horror anymore, so they didn't really have to compete with it.
That's true.
Yeah, like that.
But it took the spotlight. It could definitely took the spotlight.
The only
from it.
thing they had to compete with back then was still Silent Hill and Fatal Frame. That's it.
Yeah, which
Yeah,
Silent
pretty
Hill has
much.
been really iffy since
When
what,
Xbox
4?
360 came out, that's when horror was starting to die.
It was because all they had was
Yep.
Yes,
Condemned.
that is very
Remember.
true. They did.
And I remember playing it, and a lot of people will praise it and say it was amazing. I remember playing it when it first came out for the first time. It was the first game I actually beat on Xbox 360, and just thinking like it was fun, but there was nothing memorable about it. All I remember to this day about it is smashing
wasn't
people's
really,
teeth out, and the
like,
teeth would roll around on
They,
the
they
ground.
say it's a horror game. I'm like, I never really felt like it was too scary to me. But
Yeah,
never
it wasn't
really
a very
scary.
good
The
horror
reason
game.
I had to say, that era was awkward for me is because that's when, for me, video games started blending together. Everything was becoming, it was taking what Resident Evil 4 made famous with the over-the-shoulder camera. Everything was
Yeah.
becoming action shooter. With Call of Duty becoming bigger and bigger.
Plus,
That's true.
SOCOM was
That
kind of
era-
you had SOCOM and everything.
Nope, that era of gaming
But
was like the
that's-
down low for me. I don't have many memories besides Uncharted. I love that. That's it.
I think that was an up high for me because that was at a time also where really cool PC games were coming out for consoles like Oblivion.
Yeah, they were starting to.
And I like that. But yeah, I get what you mean by a lot of the shooters and things were starting to blend together. Because actually my favorite game, which I guess I can get into right now from when I was 15 years old, I was going through and there was a lot of really good games I liked. I like the GTA trilogy. I'm pretty sure that came out in 2015.
2015. When you were
Yeah,
15.
the Oh wait, shit, yeah, 2005, my bad. So I wasn't thinking.
Young.
Damn, you guys, I didn't tell you, but I really can't. Yeah, I'm very young. I'm not 18 yet. No, in 2005, when I was 15, my favorite game was Time Splitters Future Perfect. That was it was a shooter, like you were saying, AJ. I was in a lot of the shooters were kind of taking over and everything, but it was a very unique shooter that I feel like to this day we still haven't got. Like a really cool on that level style of first-person shooter. Everything's gotten much more realistic, and I know you can like pick through all the real gritty shooters we got now and find some of the fun ones. But that game, from the map creator to the story to all the fun weapons, like really had just a wide variety of cool, unique features, for a first-person shooter. And so I think my favorite game when I was 15 in 2005 was Time Splitters Future Perfect. And I love the hell out of Map Maker. I could sit on a map creator for days. I'd play the map creator more than I'd actually play the game just because it was one of the only games that had that feature that would let you, it was so cool. And then you could like take that map and you could put AI in, so you wouldn't even have to get all your friends together. It was fun when you did get your friends together, but you could like go through and just for hours play maps you created with all the AI from the game. I loved it. It was so cool.
Interesting.
Map creators, as you can see, a trend between sim games where you build things and then Future Perfect where you could build. I like games where you can build things
Right.
a lot. So yeah. That was my favorite then.
Well, mine when I was 15 was back in 2000, and my big game probably that year was like that I really remember. Besides the fact that I was playing everything else from before that, like Resident Evil and all of that was still common to me. Was probably Fear Effect. Fear Effect was released that year, and I was big on Fear Effect. Also, outside of Fear Effect was so out there because it was very, very, very mature, and it pushed like the boundaries on it, and it was interesting with some of the problem solving. Mechanics weren't always great, but back then the mechanics sucked on most games anyways. It was very cinematic. The characters were likable, maybe not likable, but they were real. They felt like real characters, like a TV show would give you. They weren't just one dimensional. They weren't washed out, just put in there for cannon fodder type stuff. They felt like they had backstories and they had stuff to give to the storyline. Even some of the characters that were murdered within a couple minutes gave you stories. Like what's his name? I always forget the guy's name that worked with Hannah.
Blast.
The guy the one that died early. Like you rescue him from the bomb and then he gets blasted out the window.
Jim.
Yeah.
Oh,
but Jin, and he was like a big factor. I mean, he had backstory with Hannah that was interesting. They're back and forth. You could tell that they'd known each other for a long time, and this is the first time you've ever seen them together. So they did a really good job with that. Very interesting story, very graphic, very mature. Another game that I was playing that time that because we were big on wrestling growing up. That was the Attitude Era, kind of coming to a close, but. We played a lot of SmackDown. When SmackDown came out, I think the year before that, the first SmackDown might have been that year too. But we played a lot of SmackDown too.
Was that on the N64 or?
No, we were playing on the PS2 back then. Me and my buddies, we had our little stable of wrestlers we created, and we'd show up and do tag team matches. This not only did there was the game, but then the game would roll out into the front yard where we were doing hardcore matches against each other. We were pretty big on wrestling.
That's awesome.
Our characters became us. We were our characters. So it was just a cool time period. Hanging out with my buddies, and we also played games like Siphon Filter and stuff like that, or still playing Silent Hill 1 and I think 2 came out not too long after that, or because 2 came out was the first real game I got on the PS2. So
Yeah, that was one of the best ones in the PS2. Then the third one came out too.
And 2 came out not too long after, what, maybe 2002 was when 2 came out. PS2 came out.
98, 99.
Yeah, around 2000.
Yeah.
Oh wait, the Dreamcast came out after the PS2,
think
right?
So because I think, or at least in the same time
It
period.
was more powerful.
Dreamcast was first.
Oh, Dreamcast was first. That's what I thought, because I thought the Dreamcast came out. It was really cool,
Yeah.
but
Right,
it
and
didn't
the
take off.
PS2
And then the
crushed
PS2
it,
came
yeah.
out and just like it just like cleaned up shop with everybody.
Right.
And then Xbox came out and somehow like got legs, and now we have still
we got
have
the
Xbox,
console
but
wars. But there was a time period there that was like my high school years where I spent more time at my friend's house because I lived down in the middle of nowhere, and my parents worked a lot, so I was basically at his house. His parents had pretty much adopted me into their family, and I had a key to their house. If they weren't there, I was welcome to go there and just hang out and leave and just lock when I left type thing. Just don't wreck the place. And we'd spend like, this is the middle of school year when I should have been at home, but I was spending like a week at his house, spend the night. They would take me out to go grab clothes from my house and bring me back to theirs. And we'd play video games all night. We were drinking, cream sodas and Mountain Dews and playing SmackDown, Fear Effect, Silent Hill, playing all these great games.
the best days of your life.
I know, they were
This is
great
before
years.
Call of Duty took over Mountain Dew.
This is true.
Yeah.
So that was my my 15. And let's see, if we move on to my 20, it was in 2005. I was in Japan, still playing on the PS2.
Lucky bastard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot. Totally forgot
I
you
was
lived in
just
Japan.
hoping
You
you
son of a bitch.
What I remember that year was when Resident Evil 4 came to the PS2, and I had waited on it for so damn long because I didn't have a GameCube. So when it finally hit the PS2, that's all I played, and that's really. I remember playing Resident Evil 4, Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, which came out a little bit before that. I think sometime that time period in Japan, I played a lot of Grand Theft Auto, RE4.
RE4 was a lot of fun. Definitely when it came out, it was really different, addicting Resident Evil game. But I do kind of have to agree with AJ on Resident Evil 4 that it was very different. And I still remember to this day playing it for the first time,
What
thinking,
the fuck is this?
I like the gameplay, but what's going on with the story? And why is this midget in a giant robot, and this giant robot is chasing me, and I don't know what the fuck's happening? What's going on? I remember thinking
love that
that.
little guy.
I hated it.
When I was playing it, probably the first
Like,
time,
this is so
it didn't
fucking
really
stupid.
I didn't get too in depth in the thinking about it. I was like, I just was happy to be playing Leon in a Resident Evil game again. That was entertaining. It was somewhat, intense and scary with survival. And then, but then I look back, it's like, you know what? That game was kind of weird and made no sense. Like you said, what's his Salazar, right? I think Salazar is the little guy.
Salazar's the midget, yeah.
The little
Yeah.
guy.
Sorry, call him a midget. Is that frowned upon in 2017?
Oh, I don't think
I
we have
meant
to worry
elf.
about triggering horror fans.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
They're
we're
all
good.
Giant
now.
robot, though. I mean, it was just weird. I think at that point in the game
Yeah.
is when it starts to kind of go downhill for the whole series.
It did, and I remember, like, I was a kid. I came out because I had it on GameCube. I got a GameCube for Resident Evil 1 and 0, and so I had one when it came out, and I remember playing it thinking, the first thing I thought was the pitchfork was through that lady's
Yes.
head when you, and I was just like, holy fuck, and that stuck with me. I still think about how awesome that was to this day, like how over-the-top gruesome it was, and I was so happy to, like, get a Resident Evil game that was like that, because I remember just looking at them and like, god damn, that is fucked up.
They
And
burned
then
your
What's that?
guys, your
Tour guides.
yeah. The
police
drivers,
they
yeah, they
them.
burned
And then
them.
what's his face? Who was the tall bald guy with the long beard?
Oh, Menendez.
I don't know, the main boss guy that...
Yeah. And he turned into that freaking Evil Dead type thing, dude. It was good up until the robot.
Long spinal. Yeah, it really was, and I just remember thinking, one, Eon looks super emo, and I don't like it.
Yeah,
what the
that
hell
was
did they
pretty
do to
stupid.
him? He was so cool, and two,
I was gonna say
and then
no
and then
comment about Resident Evil 4, but
Oh,
I'm just gonna say it's funny hearing you guys like remember like the names and everything, and I'm just like, yeah, this is a game that almost killed
Don't remember
Resident
any
Evil
of
for
it.
me. I was
yeah,
literally-
I guess I could see how it killed Resident
I
Evil
was
for some
literally about to
people.
walk away from Resident Evil with that game.
Ooh.
I can see how you say that, because like I said, I thought it was a very fun game, but I remember thinking, like, what's going on with the story? It makes absolutely no sense now. But I still really enjoyed it. Just I remember being aware that I wasn't happy with what was happening with the story and how goofy it was getting. So I would say yes, that is definitely kind of where it started just getting too out there for me. But I still thought that gameplay was so much fun.
Hate it.
I remember that.
That game has its ups and downs for a lot of people. But I mean, like, it was so campy and cheesy at times because, like, you gotta remember this was still the Resident Evil that Shinji Mikami worked on his last one. Mm-hmm. So like that whole Salazar thing where it's when Leon's like, if you don't need me, then get off my back, old man, and he's like, did you say, old man? This might surprise you, Mr. Kennedy, but I'm only 20 years old. And I was just like, can I just kill this guy already?
Yeah, seriously.
I do love when he threw the knife into his hand. And he goes, this isn't no ritual. It's terrorism. He goes, isn't that a popular word these days? And he just throws the knife right into his hand. And he's like,
he was channeling his inner Alfred Ashford.
He was such a pain in the ass the whole time. But
that game was so out there, and Ashley is still the worst companion in a video game I've ever played with.
I love that picture you guys shared. I shared it from you guys with it's The Shining and Leon sitting behind the bathroom door with a knife and Ashley's breaking through with the axe, and then you just see her head peeking through. She's like, Leon, help!
If we would have had a game like that as Resident Evil 4, I would have been much more happy.
Yeah.
I still call her Kenny. Like, whenever I play this day, I will always call her Kenny.
Yeah, pain in the ass. It was a good game, though.
All right, so for my 20th, that would be 2007, and this was kind of like a weird game because this was like a year for ports and everything. I mean, we had like ports like Resident Evil 4 for the Wii. I'm trying to think what some of the other ones that were out at the time too. Like Sonic 06 got ported to the PS3 a year later, and the game's complete and utter garbage. And I was playing a lot of Tenchu Z. That was like a co-op Tenchu game where you get to create your own character and do all this crazy shit. It was great. I loved it.
I never played it
either.
Oh, it's really fun, especially like if you have friends like to play like the co-op stuff with. It's interesting because you go through like these massive like levels of like Japanese houses and everything like that, and villages and swamps and all this kind of stuff. And there's different ways to go about doing it. It's kind of like a early Metal Gear Peace Walker type thing, almost like with like a team of ninjas instead. It was really cool. Plus, that was also the year we got like Manhunt 2, Halo 3. So those were good games. But the one that I played the most, because I played the shit out of the original on the Xbox, was Ninja Gaiden Sigma. That came out on the PS3. And that game was fucking beautiful. Like I said, that's 2007, I think. Yeah, 2007 is when that game came to the PS3. And it still looks good by today's standards. I was just playing it like 2 months ago, and it lacked a lot of things that the original had, but they did put in new things. Like you can play as the character Rachel, and to me it's still the best Ninja Gaiden they've ever made. It's graphically, it's amazing. Gameplay, it's one of those things where the harder difficulties you play, it's not hard because it's broken or whatever. It's actually very fair. Like the techniques that you learn as Ryu with all the weapons and the swords he has and the staffs, nunchucks, anything he gets in upgrades, they're like useless on the harder difficulties. That's what made it better. Plus with the Master Ninja mode, that's like, oh yeah, one hit and you're dead.
Is that game really hard to play? Is that the one that was really hard?
Well, pretty much any Ninja Gaiden game you play is pretty hard, but
that's what I heard.
I'll always remember the original on Nintendo because that badass opening sequence with like the cool song and they're out in the middle of the open field.
That's right. No, that's the thing. Like when Ninja Gaiden first came to the original Xbox and anything, as like kind of like a reboot and everything, it like kept the same love of a hardship that we all played when we played those original Nintendo ones, because all three of those games on the NES were fucking hard as hell. And Sigma provides a perfect blend of unlockables, challenges. There's like boss fights. They have survival type modes where you like face like waves upon waves of enemies. Sometimes you face the boss characters of the game. And
I'm sorry to interrupt you. You're saying back when games had tons of content that was in the game and you didn't have to purchase it after purchasing the game,
exactly. That's 100% correct. 100%.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like, what do you call it there? I think you did have to download like 1 or 2 things for the Sigma game, but you still got a lot of challenges and a lot of great gameplay out of it. You know, I personally enjoyed the game. It was like literally like the game I cracked hardcore on. My buddy, he's literally the Ninja Gaiden master. He's ranked still at number 16 in the world on the leaderboards.
Holy
that
shit.
dude just, it is, because he went through and he cracked hardcore to learn everything. The guy's a genius when it comes to video games. He just like, he starts playing them and like you can't touch him in certain things. And Ninja Gaiden is like his like favorite franchise. I mean, he's even got the statues that are like super stupid expensive now because they came out when the Xbox One came out. And then
them are really
yeah, you can
cool.
still get Correa, the priestess from the first game. You can still get her for pretty cheap. But Ryu and Ayane, forget about it. They're like the game. Like every version of Ninja Gaiden, Sigma's probably still my favorite because it's the most one I'm familiar with. 2's good, and then Ninja Gaiden Sigma 2 adds a lot to it. Ninja Gaiden 3, as much as people didn't like it, is still a very good game, and Ninja Gaiden 3 Razor's Edge fixed a lot of the problems in the first one.
That one had Razor Ramon in it, right?
No, it did not.
Sorry.
I commend that joke, though. I commend that. But, you know,
he was the bad guy.
Say goodnight to the bad guy. Anyway, but you know, that's it for mine. Who's up next?
AJ, you go next.
All right. Well, I turned 20 in 2011. Of course, Tony had to give me another awkward year. I'm literally sitting here while he's talking, looking through lists, trying to cheat, like see what games came out that year, and there is nothing good.
That's what I've been doing this whole time. I can't remember.
Am I the only one who prepares?
Years.
Yes.
Maybe. It's a problem in my life. I don't come very prepared.
I'm looking through the list, and like there's a couple of good ones, but I don't remember them actually being, standout titles for me. The only one that really stands out is the Alice Madness Returns.
Oh, that was a good one.
Yeah, it was a really decent game. I'm pretty sure we're not going to get another one, but yeah, that's mine. So yeah, JJ, go.
You play? Okay, that was a quick one. Basically, you took a year off of gaming and just kind of played a little here and there. This one's tough for me.
Yeah, that was just a really shit year.
Yeah, I'll have to look at that. So 2011, not good for games. This is really tough. I mean, I'm pretty sure these are my 2 top. I was just looking through the list of top games that came out, and 2 big ones stood out: Red Dead Redemption and Halo Reach.
Ooh.
And Red Dead Redemption was just so cool because I've always been a fan of the Grand Theft Auto games, and I really love the open world in the Old West. It was so much fun, but I'm probably going to have to give it to Halo Reach. My top 3 games of all time, like not genres, but series is Resident Evil, The Sims, and Halo. So when Halo Reach came out, it was the second one to not really follow the Master Chief storyline. And I remember the story being really cool, but I remember the online being a ton of fun. And I guess I just played it online a ton. And my friend would come over one day every week. We'd get some beers. We'd sit down in my basement, and we'd do like 3 hours of Halo Online and just drink beers. And it was one of the best times, gaming times I've ever had. So I just remember that game being really good online. It's different than the other ones, and I remember the story standing out a little bit. But yeah, online, I just soaked tons and tons of my time.
Yeah, Reach was like the final one that Bungie had done before they left. Finally. Yeah,
I know it's 343. I think they might have worked on a little bit, but I know there was like a big deal with that, and I think it was like their Bungie's last one. And I don't know. A lot of people like either love it or hate it. From what I hear, a lot of people think it's shit online. I thought it was excellent.
I always enjoy it.
I always have also, but just people I talk to, some people be like, yeah, that was the one that I stopped playing. Like, a lot of people say 3 is the best, and they just kind of went off after that. And ODST was, like, the story was okay. I really like, Fillion, what's his first name?
Yeah.
Nathan Fillion. And he was in it, and he was great. But the firefight was awesome, and then Reach came out, and I remember the story was awesome. They had firefight, and it had online, and it's just like it was packed, and it was really cool because, I love the Chief and everything, and I want him in the games, but it was really cool to see it kind of from a different side. And Reach is by far my favorite Halo book, and probably one of my favorite books of all time. So to actually get to play on during the fall of Reach and know that it's not going to be a happy ending and you're not going to save the day and just kind of see how it all goes to shit was really cool. So yeah, I give it.
Totally
I give it
understand
Reach.
that. Reach is really, really good in many ways. That was like, I mean, like story wise, I thought it was pretty good, especially how it ended. It's just like, holy shit, is this really happening? Because like I hadn't really played a game where like you get such a different ending like that, you know?
Yeah, it was very depressing and just badass how you just kind of see the last fighting in the reflection of the helmet. That was really
What year
cool.
was that you said for Red Dead and for Reach?
Oh, I'm sorry. That was 2010.
That
I was
into-
20 years old.
I guess, I mean, I already did my 20-year-old, so that kind of leads me into 25 because I was
Yeah.
actually playing the same thing at that time period as Red Dead Redemption. And, you know, I mean,
Oh,
I was
nice.
a huge Western fan. You know, Tombstone's one of my favorite movies of all time. And it's Rockstar. They're consistently great with all their Grand Theft Auto games. And it was such a nice twist to bring the framework of Grand Theft Auto and give you a Western-style game where, you know, you're out there riding horses and shooting people up and stuff like that. It was really cool. And I'm really looking forward to the next one. Since they brought in GTA Online, I am super excited for Red Dead Online because it's going to be cool as shit to sit down with your buddies in the saloon and drink and play poker.
Oh, I
And
can't
then go out
wait.
and do, you know, a duel in the middle of the street. It's going to be awesome, man. Robbing
So-
trains. It's gonna
so
be freaking
badass.
epic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know,
I completely agree with you on that.
Yeah, you are right. Like they're really consistent with like the games. Like Rockstar and Naughty Dog are very consistent with the games that they make. And the Red Dead Redemption series is, you know, like start with Red Dead Revolver,
Right,
and
Revolver.
like that took a long time to get the sequel going.
But it was done correctly, you know, when Rockstar took it over and they did it right. They kept what was the love of what it was being the Western atmosphere and all the things that are great about Westerns, and they gave it that Rockstar flip to it, which is just perfect. I mean, instead of stealing cars, you're wrangling horses and stuff. So
And
For
then, you know,
sure.
they made Undead Nightmare, which when that came out, I was like, yes.
yes,
I fucking love that. I thought that was so cool because I always said, like, I used to mod Grand Theft Auto really heavily in
Right,
the Vice
right.
City days, and I love the zombie mod. And I was just like, why can't a Rockstar game, or why can't Grand Theft Auto do zombies?
Having
But,
a Western
like,
setting was so
Red Dead
much cooler,
Redemption,
though.
it just it
Yes.
fit perfectly, and the story part of it too was
Right.
a lot of fun. Really very campy. It was. It didn't take itself too seriously, but it like just fit that time. I love that
Yeah.
add-on. Probably one of my
Yeah,
favorite
great
add-ons to
DLC.
any
And
game.
you know what? The storyline for Red Dead was really good. It kept you intrigued enough to keep pushing the story and to go off and do your own thing occasionally. But the ending is probably one of the top 10 endings in all video games. It
That
really
was
was.
heavy.
It was
That was
unexpected.
good.
For anybody who hasn't played it, we're not going to spoil it for you, but it really is.
Nah.
It's very impactful for gaming.
Yeah, definitely check it out if you haven't played the story. You know, usually a lot of them open world games, people just like to,
Right.
you know, explore around and kill people or play online. It's like, no, that had an
Really,
excellent story. You got to play
really,
the story.
it had its goofball characters like all Grand Theft Auto games are. You know, just they were unique in their own way for Red Dead, and the story was that interesting that it just you want to see what happens next. You want to see who you're going to encounter next, what you're going to see, what you're going to do. Are you going to resolve this issue? And even like the side missions were fun too. But I mean, they were your basic fetch type missions and stuff like that. But the main story was just really, really good.
Hell yeah, I like your choice. Tony, what was your 25?
Oh, shoot. Yeah, like that. Okay, that year, there was a lot of stuff just being, like, dropped all at once. I remember I was, like, drowning in so many freaking games. I mean, first one that came to mind was Soul Calibur 5, because I was really psyched for that game to come out, because I love the Soul Calibur games. But much like Soul Calibur 4, its appeal lasted about maybe, like, 2 weeks for me, and then I dropped it. Like, there was a lot of good content missing from the game that previous games had to make it good. And then, was it House of the Dead 3? Came out on the PSN, and I had the move at the time. The PlayStation Move. That thing was god awful, but it was still fun to play House of the Dead.
Did you ever get the gun system?
That's probably
the
one I
rifle
found.
that came that the Move worked for.
Yeah, no, I did have that, and it actually helped somewhat.
Yeah.
But that, man, if you had any lights on or something like that, like it could interfere with that camera
Yeah.
so easily.
Yeah.
It wasn't the game that was bad. It was just that move
Yeah.
system was.
Oh yeah, well it's
spotty
like
as
trying to
hell.
play Resident Evil Umbrella Chronicles and Darkside
Yeah,
Chronicles on
yeah.
the PS3 in HD, and I tried, and I was just
Yeah.
like, I can do it, but I'm like, I'm just going back to the Wii.
Yeah.
Yeah, like,
Yeah, for sure.
that was the year that the PC got like Alan Wake. The Simpsons arcade game finally came to consoles
Yep.
after having been only in like fucking arcades since like the early 90s, and that's like one of my favorite arcade games of all time. I was playing the hell out of that. I got Street Fighter Cross Tekken, Max Payne 3, Halo 4, Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen. This is the same year we got Resident Evil Operation Raccoon City, Tekken Tag Tournament 2.
The best Resident Evil.
Absolutely. Best of all time is pure perfection.
The champ.
It's the most sensual.
You gotta give it to Resident Evil Gaiden.
It was huge.
Gaiden, ooh. Huge. Tough competitor, Gaiden, though.
Huge.
Yeah.
If you want the perfect blueprint to make an outstanding game, Resident Evil Gaiden. Hands down.
Like Boats, Leon, Barry,
First
what more do you
person
want?
shooter, everything.
So needy and ungrateful. Oh, sorry that went off track there for a
It's
second.
Resident
but
Evil Operation Raccoon City. It's bound to happen. I knew that was gonna happen if I said it. this was like a year for like fighting games because, like I said, Tekken Tag Tournament 2 came out. The first version of Dead or Alive 5. We got Marvel vs. Capcom Origins, and we got Guilty Gear XX Accent Core Plus.
Nice.
Exactly. All that came out, but the one game that stood all about it for me, the number one reason why I got a 3DS at launch.
Nice. Yes.
What? I didn't hear it. It cut out for me.
Repeat,
Of course. It's Resident Evil Revelations for the Nintendo 3DS.
Really the only
hell
reason to buy a
yeah.
Nintendo 3DS unless you're a Nintendo fanboy.
Pretty much.
That thing was like the epitome of like the best a handheld can do. You know what I mean? Like they pushed the
Pretty
shit out of that.
much. They really did, because originally why I got the 3DS in the first place at launch was because we all saw that trailer where like there was a guy who looked like Chris who was tied to the chair and everything. You saw
Hunk comes out of nowhere.
And then there's Jill, and they got the guns aimed at like all three of each other. There's Hunk who fucking like comes crashing through the roof in one scene and like shoots an Ouroboros creature, and they had like zombies, and Jill had a rifle with a bayonet at the end of it. So like I was super psyched, and I'm like, it's a 3DS. Okay, I wasn't getting a 3DS, now I am. And come launch, I didn't double check. It didn't come with it, so I got Street Fighter 4 at launch for the 3DS, which was actually really fun.
I think I played that one. It was pretty good. And that Street Fighter Cross Tekken you talked about earlier, I played that. That was really
that
good
game
too.
is so bad that it's good. Like if you play with your friends, that's the thing. It's a great game. Like if you don't take it seriously, it's fun as hell to play with your friends. Like you just laugh and shit like that. It's not like when you play like Street Fighter 4, which was still like hot as hell at that time.
Super competitive.
Oh yeah, I get what you're saying for sure.
Tekken Tag.
I'm not very good at fighters, so that's probably why I like to
I was
take
good
it
at
too
Tekken.
seriously.
I was good at Mortal Kombat. I never really could get like good at Street Fighter as much as I like to play it. Marvel vs. Capcom I was good at, but I always play with Marvel characters. So
I play a lot with.
I just random off topic. I was just searching for some new arcade machines to buy, and I found in my area Marvel Cross Tekken, or I'm sorry, Capcom vs. Marvel. And it's like over $1,000. I was like, shit, that would be such a cool cabinet to have.
JJ, start working those corners.
I guess I'll do it. I don't care. I'll sell
just sell your kid. You got one kid, right?
I gotta say, apparently,
I like this one though.
Apparently, Capcom have a habit of putting out the greatest Resident Evil games when people turn 25 because. Let's see, Tony may have had Operation Raccoon City, but I had the golden age of Resident Evil for 25. I had Umbrella Chronicles.
perfect.
Or Umbrella Corps.
I thought you were going to say
Umbrella
6.
Corps.
Oh, you had
Umbrella
okay.
Corps.
I was like Chronicles. That's not bad. But you got
I was like, yeah, like,
you hit
yeah.
the jackpot.
I ruined my own joke. I ruined my own joke. There's too many fucking Umbrella games.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, like Revelations. Like when I first got a hold of that, like I was kind of like, oh my god, they're fucking bringing horror back. Like it's finally back. Like the way they did it, there wasn't no like kill the enemies. They dropped the items and everything like that. You had to use the Genesis scanner to find like secret items. There was unlockables. Raid mode. It was fun for a while, but like the problem was they didn't consider how long you had to fucking grind in raid mode to unlock stuff. And I, even with my friends that had a 3DS, I was playing with like other parts of the country and even in Mexico, like it wasn't fun after a while. You weren't getting anywhere. You literally had to grind and get nowhere. Unlike in Revelations 2, that raid mode, you get places. They completely overhauled it and do a better thing. But Revelations was like, to me, it wasn't only a great like start to return to horror, but it probably, in my opinion, is the best 3DS game they made. I mean, I got like Dead or Alive Dimensions. I thought that game was really good on there. One of the Mario Karts was on there. Trying to think. I mean, yeah, there's the Pokemon games. I got pretty much all of them and everything, but it's the same thing over and over.
Yeah.
It's not groundbreaking. But yeah, other than that, like, yeah, like it's to me, for the 3DS and the PSP, they had their games that like that. There was that one game that really pushed it. And like I said, for the 3DS, to me, that was Revelations, and for the PSP, that was Peace Walker.
Yeah.
Because that game really pushed. Because like, if you played Portable Ops, that game was pretty basic and annoying with how you had to do stuff. Still fun to play, but then Peace Walker was like the perfected version of that game.
Right.
And Revelations itself was just amazing from start to finish. You know, I was bummed out. Oh, that's no problem.
Hang on. Let me mute this real quick.
The damage has been done. Everybody's ears hurt.
Doesn't even have a ringtone.
Them are great. Yeah, them are great handheld games. I think we all picked except for me because I know AJ. You just said your favorite one was Umbrella Corps.
Yeah, I was being more
I guess
joking.
my favorite.
No,
I
he's
know,
not
I'm totally
joking. That's
kidding.
the sad thing.
No, it really is his favorite. No, AJ.
Absolutely.
So if it's not Umbrella Corps, what else could it possibly be?
That year was 2016, so it was pretty much the year of the remasters. Well, I liked Final Fantasy X, X2 remaster. The Resident Evil 0 HD remaster was really fucking good.
That doesn't count.
But I don't want to count an HD remaster, so I'm gonna go with Rise of the Tomb Raider for PC.
There you go.
Woo!
And
that
fuck you,
game
Microsoft. It has nothing to do with you.
Really, I get so confused with you, AJ, because you tell me you love Tomb Raider. I got that, but I see you like Tomb Raider, Rise of the Tomb Raider sometimes, and sometimes you hate Rise of the Tomb Raider. I am so confused. Please explain.
I like the gameplay for it.
Okay.
Like, once you finish the game and you're going back looking for collectibles and you're doing side missions, shit like that, you're not being bothered by the fucking retarded story. It's just you with isolation. It feels like Tomb Raider, classic Tomb Raider. In endurance mode, fucking amazing.
I haven't played it.
Fucking awesome. It was just like the classics. They brought the classic puzzles back. There's pushing, pulling. They brought like the library back from the original manor.
Oh, hell yeah.
There's
That's cool.
Easter eggs.
They got to bring the whole manor back. Didn't they do that?
Well, actually, there's a little Easter egg where if you beat the game and then go back to Croft Manor, you see her moving in and bringing like crates and stuff from the original game in.
Cool.
Oh, no shit. Can you lock the butler in the...
I don't want to spoil it, but there is a bunch of them. Now, you know
Not
what?
everybody
I'll
did.
spoil it. There is a little document you could find, and it talks about how... Alright, and he's talking about how she used to put him in the freezer.
Are you serious?
Yep.
They made it
Basement
canon.
painting trolls and locking butlers in freezers.
Little Easter egg.
So dope. He's creepy.
He was creepy.
He does look creepy, and he just always knows where you are.
He's
I just
a
don't
good
like
butler.
it. He's too good
job.
and belongs in the freezer to learn his
No,
lesson.
I'm gonna go with Rise of the Tomb Raider for PC.
I think that's a good pick too. That game was solid. That was a remake. In my opinion, I enjoyed the story. I was in and out because my fiance is actually playing it, and I was watching her because that was like one of the first games she played in a while, and she ended up beating it, and I was just kind of like jumping in when it would get too hard because no, just kidding. I liked it overall. I thought it was a really good sort of reboot, and I don't know, it just had that mechanic to it where you're playing through. It's got a decent story. It's kind of an open world. You can kind of upgrade. It's got the RPG elements, and what was I gonna say? Oh, it's got the you're constantly like up bettering your character. The RPG
like leveling
aspect
up.
to it.
And
It was a really good, it's got the Resident Evil 4 sort of feel to it. I remember when I was playing it, I was like, this kind of feels like Resident Evil 4, just more action-packed. You know what I mean?
Rise of the Tomb Raider action-packed?
Yeah, I thought so. I thought there was a lot more shooting. Like, I'm comparing it to Resident Evil 4. Well, Resident Evil 4 was pretty action-packed. I don't know. It's just got that mechanic
Yeah,
to
let's
it.
not
the
get
RPG
back in that
mechanic I
topic
really
of
like.
Resident Evil 4. I pass.
Yeah, we'll stay away from that. Okay, I guess I'll get into it. I'm just rambling right now. All right, let me get to when I was 25 years old. This was in 2015, and I remember that year very vividly because there was 3 big hitters that year for me. I'll start with Halo 5 Guardians. I got it, the Halo, because I'm a huge Halo fan. I got the Halo 5 Xbox. I was looking forward to forever. I was super pumped. I remember playing it and thinking the story was just shit. I didn't like the story at all. Coming off of 4, which I thought, in my opinion, was probably the best campaign in a Halo game because it went darker and realer, and not, I wouldn't say realer, but just darker and more serious and more of a mature Halo game, to go to 5 where Chief just kind of looks like a bitch to Locke, and their whole little fight is like 2 seconds when they built it up to be this best thing. So I didn't like the campaign. The multiplayer was really good, but not enough to be my favorite game that year. The second one, Fallout 4. I remember playing it thinking, this game is just too goddamn good. I was like addicted to it for like 3 weeks straight. I put like 80 hours into it, and I want to say like 2 weeks, something like that. It was just a crazy amount I put into it in a short amount of time. I was spending way too much time with it. I loved it, but it still wasn't my favorite game. My favorite game of 2015 was Untitled.
Nice choice.
Yeah, I had a good year.
That was definitely a good one.
It was one that I was interested in. I wasn't excited for. It came out. I kind of seen the reviews were good. I didn't pick it up day one. I just got this I got a little itch to play something here and there, and I got an itch to play that, and I was like, oh, it's doing good, and sure, I'll give it a try. So I bought it, didn't play it for a little while, and finally it's like, I'm gonna throw it in. My fiance, daughter were sleeping, and I was just playing it, and I remember I just couldn't stop playing it, and I played it through the entire night, and it was like that. It was like a really, because the story, I thought it was going to be really bad. So it exceeded my expectations, surprisingly, because I went into it with such low expectations that it exceeded it. It threw a curveball. I didn't see coming.
Right.
I didn't see the curve coming, so it was extra, I don't know, I liked it more because I had such low expectations and I didn't see it coming. The gameplay about it, I know a lot of people complain and say it's not really a game, and I don't care. I like the story, I like the characters, I like the choices. That gameplay where you're just kind of walking around and looking for things was totally cool with me, and it was really reminiscent of, like I said in previous videos, of classic Resident Evil games with that fixed camera. I know it wasn't fixed, it pans and moves with you, but it's like modern day
really
version
cinematic
of that,
and it really immersed you, and it made you feel like not only were you watching a interesting movie, but I mean being involved in it, you were in control of it, almost like you're directing it, and it was completely unpredictable. I mean, when you play it through now, you're like, you know what's going to happen when, but anybody could die at any time. There's no direct protagonist. There's people you're rooting for, but you have control over everything, and it's basically, if you mess up, they die, and you got to play the rest of the game with somebody you hate.
Exactly, and that gave it replay value, because I remember immediately after I beat it, I wanted to beat it again, try to save the characters, and it was just really cool to play it with different friends, because I liked it so much. I wanted their reaction, and we'd all get together at my house, we'd play through it, they would love it. Another friend that hasn't seen it, we'd play through it, they'd love it, and it just, it was short enough to where it wasn't completely you could beat it in a night, but the story was great, the twists were great, the characters were great, the atmosphere was incredible. Probably one of the most memorable horror games I've played since the classic Resident Evil games, with the house and the asylum and the woods, and I loved it. It just left such a lasting appeal on me that it beat out Fallout 4, which I probably played the most of that year. Until Dawn just completely exceeded expectations and blew me away, and I totally love it. I want more cinematic horror games like that. I don't care if I'm not in full control through the entire thing. The choice system, if you have a good story, you have good characters, you have good core elements, that works.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I was kind of the same boat with you. When that came out, I was tracking it, throughout the years as it was getting developed, and he's reading a little bit of magazines, see it pop up online. So I was really, really curious about it. But as it got closer to it, I was like, it looks too campy. I don't know if I'm going to like it. But it came out. I gave it, about a month or so. And I picked it up one afternoon from Redbox. And we were supposed to watch, I remember it was supposed to be a UFC fight night. And I never made it to that fight because I put it in. And I never turned it off. I think I played like 6 hours and beat it. I was just hooked. And I put all my effort into it, and it was great. I saved everybody, even the horrible characters, until the end. And I think most of us can agree. A lot of us who have played out there, that your favorite character is probably going to be Sam, right? Peyton Pantiere's character. She's the most likable, the most relatable.
Oh yeah,
hero. She's charismatic. She's a great character in that game, and she's the only one I didn't save at the very end. I got everybody out. And everybody gets out of the house, and she's the last one. And I was trying to keep the controller still, and I moved it just the slightest bit, and I lost her. And then everybody at the end was like doing their little speeches, and it was like, it's so.
No, she
I
could have
know,
been
it was
here.
like she martyred herself basically to save everybody, even the assholes and the bitches like Emily.
Yeah,
God, I wanted her. I
Emily
did
was
everything I
the-
could
the
to kill her,
biggest
and I still
bitch.
kept her alive somehow.
I know. Same here, man. Until I tried to, and I was just like, I had to deal with her when I was trying to keep all of them alive.
Should have just shot her when I had the chance.
Should just put it through her head. And like that, the choice system had some weight. Like because of the characters that you, like I said, it had the replayability where you want to save all the characters, and that's where the
Right.
choices really matter because they will die, and that's why you got to go back through and make better
interesting.
choices.
It's an
And-
interesting story
and,
too.
You know, yeah, it was a very interesting story, and the choices weren't all about like this one saves them, this one doesn't. It's like no, you actually have to do things. You have to do things in a certain amount of time. You have like time limits. You have like different ways of choices. Like sometimes if you don't make a choice, that's
Right,
a choice.
exactly.
You know what I mean? And that whole butterfly effect, going back and seeing what I did to affect, where I was, it was really cool. And obviously, it was the first. I know there's a lot of games that did stuff like that, but like it could be so much improved on now. Like it was just a really good core game, and I could just see like 2 being incredible. I just kind of hope they do
I
a
want to
completely
see new
different
characters
story
in
and
a
just
different environment with different, things
Yeah.
going on.
a whole different. I would like that a lot. I don't want any of this. I mean, I guess if you could do this, like a continuation with the same characters, and if they did it right, great. But I just want a whole new thing, and a
The
whole new
casting
area
was
to
really
explore.
good for that game too.
the-
They had some really, really good actors.
It was.
in it. I mean, people that you see on TV. The guy that plays Josh, I mean, he's big with iRobot. His career's taken off.
Yep.
Hayden, she's always been entertaining. It's just really, really, really well done.
Yeah, they took all the
Really well
likenesses of pretty much all the actors and put them into the game, which I thought
Yeah.
was really good too. You can like if you see like the actual like the characters, like the actors playing them, you can see like the similar
Right.
difficulties and everything like that. Similarities, I mean, but like that game, like I didn't know that game existed. I had gotten my PS4 and I had gotten games like was like a Far Cry 3. That was the first game I got for it, and a couple others I think. And my buddy told me, he goes, dude, you know what Until Dawn is? And I was like, never heard of it. He goes, it's a survival horror type game. You like those Telltale games, right? And I was like, oh yeah, the Walking Dead ones. Those are pretty good. And he goes, good. Go get Until Dawn. And I was like, I'm just gonna wait for
Yeah,
it to
that's
go down.
really all you need to know.
Just go get it. And I was like, I don't want to pay full price. And he goes, trust me, dude, this is a game that's worth $60. And I was like,
Yeah, it's definitely worth full price.
yeah. So I was like, oh, okay. So I
Yeah.
sat down and I went through it all in one night, and I was like, it's brutal.
Is anybody else hear his microphone? You keep cutting out like here and there, Tony. And you said, I went through it all night, and I was like, and it just went quiet.
Oh, all right. Well, that's weird.
What were you like? What was?
No, I was just saying, I was like, the game is fucking brutal with like the death scenes and the characters and everything. And I was kind of surprised because like a lot of games, will like censor things.
Right. No, this is full on graphic.
Was it ever? Like, I actually got
yeah.
spooked a lot of the times. I mean, like they had their typical like 80s horror, like scare tropes and everything like that, but it worked. Like
In that style of gameplay, that 80s, where you can control the outcome and stuff, like I think that worked perfect. That it just fits so well. I love that whole older sort of
yeah,
horror
it
vibe.
did. It worked 100%, and I thought it was a great game. And everybody I know that likes horror and everything like that didn't know about the game, I kept telling them, I was like, here, I would let my friends borrow it. I was like, borrow this, but I'm gonna tell you, you gotta go out and buy your own copy because this game is freaking awesome.
Oh, hell yeah. And like you said, totally worth the $60. I got my value, over and over with that one.
Meanwhile, AJ has waited like a normal person, and now I can play it for $15.
Well, there you go.
Aren't you special?
You can.
Yes, I
Aren't
am.
you special? It was you messed up, but yeah, get it. It's great, AJ. You got to play it. I would love to see you stream it and just get to watch your reactions and thoughts on it. So definitely you haven't played
on our
it. Do
channel
it.
as well. I think I'm gonna work that in soon. So
Same here. Sounds good. Yeah, I plan on doing that at some point. That's one where we could both do because it's just so good that like it. I don't mind like having that on the channel
right, and
multiple
it's
times.
you don't know how it's
going
gonna play out. You could save different characters, or you can
Exactly.
make different decisions. So
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
like, I've only
exactly.
played through the game
Kill
once.
Oh, once. Gotta
Well, yeah,
begin.
that's the thing. See, a game like that, depending on how you go about the game, it's kind of like what happened with Heavy Rain years ago. The creator of the series was like, "Look, this is a game that's pretty good with a story. So if you didn't get the good story the first time, wait a couple months to go back and play it again. And if you get the better story, but not the full story, wait a couple more months to go back and play it again. Because he says like every time you play it, you or if you do it back to back, or even really close between the times that you play it, he says that you lose a lot with the story. You kind of lose the feel because you know what's going to happen at one point. And I kind of feel that like Until Dawn's the same way. Now, like I said, I got my PS4 2-3 years ago now, so like, you know, going back and playing Until Dawn again would be perfect.
Yep. Yeah, go for it.
Do it. Stream it. I want to watch you play it too. I want to watch everybody play it. It's a good group game. It really is. Well, that was our 5, 10, 15, 20, and 25. I want to know what your guys' favorite games were when you were 5, 10, 15, 20, and 25. Let us know down in the comments. This is a lot of fun to do. We have the Residents of Evil podcast, episode 3, coming out soon. There's a ton of Resident Evil news out there, so we have plenty to talk about. Thank you all for listening. Like I said, let me know if you like this, and I hope to see you back at the Residents of Evil.